Hello, welcome to the ninth episode of Unifying Force. I'm Ket. There's Dave. Geo's on assignment. Uh, what's going on?
By the time people are watching this, we're recording a little early. There has been all kinds of Star Wars news in this week, just like hit all at once. Like, were you surprised to see all the news just like that? Just like they threw it out there, tons of stuff.
Yeah, it's like, there's no real method to the madness.
Well, that's probably the truth too. But let's like get into it. Is the next Mando is gonna be a movie? Like the Mandalorian and Grogu?
Yeah, they better change that title
Well,
because,
yeah, I'm hoping that's okay.
for starters, they waited too long to name that character, so nobody's gonna know, like casual fan, like what's Grogu. It's like they'll recognize the kid, but that. Um, Secondly, how attached is it going to be to the TV shows? Like, will you need to see the first three seasons of the show and Book of Boba Fett to be able to follow along with the movies? They need it to be accessible.
Yeah.
And am I excited about it? Not really. It might be good. I mean, Favreau kind of struck out with writing Boba Fett and Mando season 3, and again, I want Star Wars to be doing new things. It's like, yeah, Mandalorian works great in the TV corner of Star Wars right now. And if you're going to do a movie, I'd kind of prefer it to be something else. So maybe it works out. But the fact that they already have a production schedule beginning, I think they said this summer, suggests that this has been in the works for a while, and this has just been thrown out there to distract from other things going on the internet.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, like look at what this hand is doing while this hand is just going. Yeah. It kind of is that. Now, here's my initial reaction. My initial response to that was excitement. I was like, because I'm going to where I would go with this movie, and if they go anywhere close, maybe that's going to be a good thing. I personally am hoping when they said Mandalorian and Grogu, I'm hoping for like what it initially was kind of supposed to be, season one. I want Lone Wolf and Cub as
Mm.
as a standalone movie. If they make that, because they could, they could go back and cover that kind of time jump where we don't know what's happening when Grogu was new with Mando. It might even be before Mando knew what Grogu's name was. There's that period, you know. Um,
Right. Because there was a significant, or feeling a significant time jump between the first two seasons.
yeah, I mean, it could be between the first two seasons. It could be after season two when he's, before Grogu goes to the temple. Is we could still see that kind of, them feeling each other out. It could really give more gravitas to that relationship, that last moment when he's going away and he removes the helmet. If you see this kind of how much of a father Din Djarin has become to grow, you know what I mean? So there are things they could do with it completely and totally that I think would be great. But you hit on the head right there. Is if they just take a D plus season, what was scheduled to be a D plus season, and make it theatrical. That's yeah. Those of us that have been following along and watching, that'll be great to see it on the big screen. But everybody else, it's not gonna do what you do just because I don't know, maybe their other movies aren't coming along as quickly.
Yeah, they're kind of in a mess over there anyway. I mean, they clearly need new leadership. Uh, there's like a track record of them being on board with the project, but then if said director's other unrelated project fails, oh, we panic and we don't have faith in them anymore, and we fire them and we move on to the next thing. And that's been going on a lot lately. And now that they're just kind of throwing this movie out there, it's like, okay, you were already scheduled to film anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there was that rumor a while ago that season 4 might become a movie, and that was just a rumor. It wasn't true. So they've been working on it for a while. don't have any clue what the story is going to be or exactly what the timeline is going to be, because technically season 3 is rather sloppily ended that story where now they're just kind of camped out on Navarro in their own little backyard. And it's
Yeah,
like,
so I mean, it could be anything really, because season 3, sloppy or not, that hit on pretty much like an iris out. We're here.
yeah,
That's, this is where we are. This is either got to be some kind of, I don't know, if I don't know that there is a natural continuation of that. This has got to be what chaotic event, what thing, what happening um could bring Din Djarin like out of his kind of retirement there, you know?
right.
So I don't know. I mean, it could happen, and it could happen. I don't know that I want it to, but it could happen with the other big news of the week, which is Ahsoka season 2. They're working on that. So I mean, that kind of
Yeah.
that
That to me is like a non-announcement because I mean season 1 ended on a cliffhanger, so you know they're going to continue the story. It was just a matter of how they're going to continue it and when. But the image they released of that sketch shows that they do intend to continue Baylan Skull's journey, so they will be recasting that character. Uh, and it's like, okay, but who knows when that's going to come? Because I don't think they provided a scheduling update for that.
Well, that's what I was kind of saying and alluding to, is I wonder if the Mando and Grogu movie is gonna be a lead in to that. We'll find out, I guess, well, if we start to see like leaks of what characters or who's working or whatnot, is Rosario and the new actors. Well, I guess not, because I don't know if you would say it's Mandalorian and Grogu and then pull a Book of Boba Fett and it's not really about the Mandalorian and Grogu. It's
I don't
people
think
away.
that'll happen because the Mandalorian and Grogu, especially, are top selling merchandise right now. And that might also be what it is because you could easily write a simple space western story and get an
Yeah.
easy win out of that. Uh, so that
Which
might be what it is. And maybe because there have been a lot of rumors lately of, oh, is it going to be season 4? Is it turning into season, or is it turning into a movie?
yeah.
That they just decided to announce it because, okay, this is what we're doing. And it sounds like they've been working on it a while. And because it's with Favreau, who's established with them, it sounds like it has a likelihood of happening. They
Hmm.
did say they have a production schedule already set, which is good because they, in all their previous announcements, they don't usually have that set yet. But the fact that they do this time suggests that it will actually happen.
Yeah. Well, I think it's gonna happen, but the question is, you're right, is it gonna be a standalone movie? Is it gonna be Mando season 4? Because and my question again too is it gonna be a lead in to Ahsoka season 2? Because we're still getting, we think, at this point, the Filoni movie. That's still going to be a thing. That's supposed to be the climax of the Mandoverse. So we're still going to get a Filoni directed,
Yeah,
the alleged Thrawn movie. But this could be like Mando's call to action, retirement. Maybe they won't show Ahsoka and Sabine. They'll save that for Ahsoka season 2. But Mando could get caught up in the events on this side of the galaxy, where Thrawn has returned and Ezra is back, and Ezra needs to recruit him to help. You know,
yeah. It's just a question of, are they going to make it more for diehard fans who already know all this stuff, or are you going to make it more palatable for casual fans who don't know most of those other characters? And I think that's going to be a big problem that the Filoni movie is going to face because it's being set as a conclusion to a bunch of streaming shows,
yeah,
which means you can't just walk into there and watch it as an average Star Wars movie and necessarily get what's going on. Uh, Whereas this, I hope, is just kind of its own thing. Even though I'm not really excited that we're still, turning this into a movie. It's like it doesn't sound like something they were planning to begin with. It seems like they're just doing it. It's like, okay.
well, that's one of the wonders that I have is are they turning this into a movie to kind of get people ready to see the other one, to get ready to see the Filoni movie in theaters? Are they getting used to that? And does that mean that, you know, the Rey movie is getting pushed back and the Dawn of the Jedi movie is getting pushed back? That we've got to get something out in theaters. So we're going to put this Mando movie out in theaters to hopefully make the next Mando movie do better in theaters. But I
See,
was
that's where I would come in with a wrecking ball and just clean the slate. Because it's like if you're having this types of problems where you have to release one movie to get the goodwill to make the next movie, it's like, come on, you have so many things to draw from for Star Wars. Just make a standalone movie that's not tied to any of your shows. Get Star Wars back in the theater, like one of the places it belongs. But we can't do this. We can't figure this out. Like we're doing a Rey movie. It's like, does anybody really want the Rey movie? It's like,
well,
I mean, I can see why they
people that want the Rey movie. There are people that want that. There are people that are extremely hesitant about that, and I'm going to count myself in that case. But yeah, there are a lot of people that came into the sequel era, and that's their Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, and there are also a lot of people. You got to think there are a lot of people who judge movies less harshly than we do, because there are people that have grown up in seeing what has been put out and pushed as mainstream movie fine cinema in recent history. And recently, you know, what do you think of that's been truly fine cinema, truly fine mainstream cinema that people have actually gone to see?
Oppenheimer?
Well, yes. But Oppenheimer, but would people have gone to see Oppenheimer without Barbenheimer?
Yes, absolutely.
Without it, yeah.
Absolutely, they would have gone to see it. Maybe not as many, but absolutely, Nolan's name on it. There you go.
Okay. Well, yes, that's true.
And that they had a stacked cast.
I don't think it would have been as huge of a thing without.
And same with Barbie. It wouldn't have been as huge had it not been for the Barbenheimer thing. That ended up being mutually beneficial because every other movie that summer was just cannibalizing each other's box office because they were dropping big movies like every week, and I guarantee they're not going to do that again. Spread
that would be a thing too. Is please spread out the movies. Is, you know, not even from like a financial point, time, man, and especially as long as movies are at this point. Like, how long was Oppenheimer?
It's 3 hours, but it flies by like that.
Well, yeah, it flies by, and it's not, and that's a good thing. But like, just the physical time of, oh, you've committed a half a day by the time you get to your theater and you go and watch 3-hour movie and you get back from the yeah. But we don't have time to do all the movies all the time. Is space them, let us see something. But yeah, and I mean, the movie that we would really I was most excited about, the movie was The Dawn of the Jedi, and I've heard nothing else.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because Benioff and Weiss were interviewed recently, and that was apparently what their film was going to be too. And they said Lucasfilm didn't like our ideas, and that's fine. And I thought, well, I think the real reason is because Game of Thrones season 8 came out and they didn't like it, and so bye, sent them away. But now that James Mangold is doing, and it's questionable whether Mangold's going to do it, because yes, he has a working relationship with them now, which is a huge plus that a lot of the other directors they part ways with don't have that at the time. Right. They're already sent away. The fact that Indiana Jones didn't do the gangbusters numbers they're all expecting might cause them to hesitate, much like they did with the other directors whose most recent projects hadn't been that good, and they might say, maybe we're going to save this for another time. Maybe you want to do something else, or see you later type thing. Because like that old saying goes, you're only as good as your latest project.
Yeah. See, I want to see movies get back to being kind of far more writer-centric than director-centric. It seems to me in recent history is everything is reliant, and the director has so much power to completely and totally change any sort of story that was going on. We see this with, kind of the sequel trilogy really is like, oh, we're going one way and then we're going another way and then we're sharp left.
Well, there was no story in Force Awakens to
Yeah.
deviate from, so it's like, man.
Well, it's like people. Well, I'm talking about how kind of a lot of The Last Jedi seems to, part of the movie goes this way and then part of the movie goes a completely separate way and part of the movie comes back this way, and it's, but it's just like in the original thing is George had a story. And George didn't even, I was like, I don't have time to direct this. Here's your story. This is what we're doing. Boom, another director. Okay, you got the same kind of thing with with Indiana Jones, is like, we've got this great story that's written and done. Here, give it to Spielberg. Go.
Yeah.
Is that's the kind of thing that we need, and it's not like there's not these stories there. There are hundreds upon hundreds, thousands even, of comic books and EU and every other thing that is just like, hi, could we pick that story and go? It's really kind of a lot of my problem with the Dark Knight and the Batman versus Superman. It's like, if you're going to do the Dark Knight Returns, how about we just don't change pivotal stuff? Do that story. But you know, but so, well, let's keep going. We kind of went back to the first thing about the Mando movie, but what about Ahsoka season 2? Is what do you think about that? It's you mentioned from the teaser art that they've got there, we're really looking like we're going to get kind of deep into some Mortisy stuff.
Yeah, and I don't see how that's going to relate to what's going on with Thrawn and the witches in the main galaxy. Like, they used each other to get back to the Star Wars galaxy. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Ezra is going to tell Hera about what's going on with Thrawn. Okay, great. Ahsoka and Sabine are just chilling out on Peridia. They don't really care that they're there. And again, it's the issue. It's like, the heroes don't care. Why should we? But it's like, their story is going somewhere. You had Anakin's like Force Ghost or whatever there on Peridia, satisfied that Ahsoka is where she needs to be. They've been teasing for the longest time that Ahsoka is going to be the new daughter at some point, and they were sort of teasing that Baylan Skoll has been enticed by Abeloth, and that might be what's going on there. But again, I don't see how this is going to tie back into what's going on with Thrawn and the bigger story of how he's effectively the heir to the Empire and is going to presumably be the big bad of the Filoni movie. Like, that seems like a totally separate thing from Mortis gods and all that stuff. And I could see why, if Abeloth is the evil or whatever on Peridia, that's why Thrawn and the witches didn't want to go exploring too far, just wanted to get the heck back to the Star Wars galaxy. But I'm kind of lost right now on how they're going to unite the two completely different plot lines at this point. Or if it's going to be like, like Two Towers, where you're telling these separate stories. They're sort of related overall, but not really. Kind of, like that kind of thing, maybe.
Well, I mean, it could. They could go for, okay, we've got a story that's happening in the Star Wars galaxy. That's why I think that Mando and Ezra, that call to action kind of might be a thing. Is that's a separate story that could happen, and we wouldn't have to get to Ahsoka and Sabine yet. But I think, I hope that they do more with Mortis other than they explore it, they enter the world between worlds, and that is the means by which they travel space and get back to the story, the conflict that's going on in the Star Wars universe. There's got to be more stuff with Baylan and with Shin that something happens there. I was talking the other night, we were doing Ahsoka Revisited. If you're not aware and you're watching this, that on Thursday nights, that's the watch along right now, is we're rewatching Ahsoka, and we are, since the strike is over, able to do that with people that are actually participated. We've done it with Hal Hickel, who has been involved in the visual effects there, and Chris Bartlett, who is the builder and actor of many of the droids. So go check those out. But we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep watching. And we were talking about just how brand new characters. Shin and Balin are really kind of the breakouts on that show. Like,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that?
Again, that's like I like the idea that new characters are getting the attention, but in a show that show is largely about bringing back legacy characters from Rebels and from the EU with Thrawn, and then of course with Ahsoka. And I don't know what it says that your two best characters everybody's excited about are not any of those characters. and again, that's obviously going to be affected by the death of Ray Stevenson. He was so good playing that role. I don't know who they're going to get to play the next one, but again, that seems like those two characters were off on their own separate storyline. It's like, yeah, Hati was a bit naive and wanted petty vengeance, and Balin's like, fine, you go do that. I'm gonna go do the bigger thing here. Like, and his goals seem so much more lofty than I don't care about the Republic, the Empire, the Old Republic, New Republic, and the Jedi, the Sith. Forget the end the cycle. Let's go do this. And it's like, yeah, well, I have a feeling that this thing that he's being drawn to is something cosmic, Lovecraftian, and not related to Thrawn. And in a sense, if it is Abeloth, it just dwarfs the threat of Thrawn by like a billion, like a billion to one. It's like it's so. That's why I'm kind of surprised that they're potentially putting these two things in the same show, like something much more cosmic. Like if it does turn out to be Abeloth, if not, because the Mortis gods are technically still dead, they haven't been replaced yet. It's like yes, it's teased that Ahsoka will be the daughter, but we don't know exactly who will be the son or who will be the new father. But I'm just kind of stumped as to how it's like, yeah, your best characters in this show are two brand new ones who are not really doing anything anymore that has anything to do with the threat of Thrawn and that whole thing. So it'll be interesting to see how they tie it all in.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go with.
Or maybe Ahsoka season 2 is exclusively just what's going on in Peridia, and then they continue the storyline of Thrawn and Ezra and all of them, and maybe a yet to be announced show, or the 4th season of Mandalorian. Maybe it merges with that, and then eventually to the Filoni movie.
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of material there, and I think at some points, even I think Mark and Ashley might disagree with me here. Is at some points Rebels kind of felt that way. Is that Rebels was kind of going here and there on a story and this and that. A lot of the original stuff with Kanan and Ezra going to the old Jedi temples and things were very different than the run, hide, shoot episodes of their interactions with the Empire. There was the big mysticism section over here of Ezra's training, and then there's we're still fighting the Empire, we're still doing this over there, but we're doing this over here. So maybe that's kind of the continuation and where we're going.
Yeah.
But
And then just curious regarding the Rey movie. Is that going to be the beginning of a new thing, like a new film series? Is it going to be a standalone thing, or is it going to be like a continued in a series, almost like a pilot, like the movie, like kind of like what they did with the Clone Wars back in the day, that it started out as a movie as an introduction to the TV show, maybe?
So I am by no means well versed in this, but I hear things and hear from people who hear things. And to my understanding at this point is the Rey movie is supposed to be one movie right now of Rey at some point after the events of Rise of Skywalker, allegedly a time jump after the events of Rise of Skywalker, of her restarting or rebuilding the Jedi Order based on, her point of view of what that should be. She has the sacred Jedi texts, but she's been, raised in the Force or whatever in a far more different way than traditional, right? Even worse than Luke, who had this much training, but he did get to go and have the time with Yoda. Is she's just kind of forced by the seat of her pants, Is she's, because the events dictated it, she had to do it, and all these things came on that fast. But she's supposed to be starting her new Jedi Order. Now, the other rumors are, of course, that if this movie goes well, this could potentially turn into another trilogy, which this is where the mistakes happen. This is where the mistakes happen, is if you're going to do a trilogy, freaking commit and have an overarching story in mind. Why does she create a new Jedi Order? What is going on? Did we not just defeat Palpatine and all of these things? So why does this need to be done? Tell us.
Right.
Allude to that. Don't get halfway through movie number 2 and go, somehow Palpatine returned, because we need some reason why we're doing these things. So,
Right. And I don't really have any faith in them to plan that out or think that deeply about it. Because I feel if you're going to make a movie that's about, you know, the new direction of the Jedi, even if it's not a Skywalker Saga movie, you need to find a really great writer for that. And you start with, first of all, the story outline has to come from the story group for that.
yeah.
Leland Chi, Keeper of a Holocron, got to start and end with him for the story. And you got to find a really great director if you want to really win back goodwill of the fans after the way Rise of Skywalker went. If you want to set, if this movie is intended to set the table for, like, it could be a standalone movie, her setting up the Jedi, and then after that they could do shows or other movies that deal with those characters or whatever, and Rey doesn't have to be there. Well, then you need, again, a really great, like a Spielberg. You need some. This has got to be a really special, great movie, and there's not much that's been said about what the story's gonna like in terms of who's gonna write it. Is it the same the director's also gonna write this one, right?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, because they already announced the director. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
you did the Miss Marvel show and you did some documentaries, but that's not. I mean, yeah, you might do a good job at it, but I would probably go find a bigger name with, because again, this movie is going to set the table for what the whole future of this whole Jedi Order potentially is going to be. And again, like I said, you got to win back all that goodwill. You got to make a good, like, great movie that's going to do gangbusters numbers, which it could.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the story group, I feel, needs to really be involved in that for charting out what the story is actually going to be. And they haven't really announced it. Like, they don't. I'm not even clear what the story group does anymore, because it's clear that they don't have any say of what goes on in the TV shows or the movies. So
they may put stories out there that people ignore or something. I don't know, but I think Star Wars is starting to run into a point that Marvel is starting to run into, that we've talked about, is where do you go from there? Is you've got this villain, there are other villains out there in the Marvel comic book universe, but you go to like Galactus, and where do you go beyond that?
well, that's
If
why
this
they
is
didn't bring him in earlier. They were considering that for Endgame, like maybe a Galactus reference or a what's his name, the judge. I can't remember, the Almighty Judge or whatever it was called. And they're like, no, we can't do these things because once you do that, you can't really go back from it.
the
It's like
Beyonder,
the one who, God, what is it? The guy who lays judgment. This almost like a celestial being that they were going to go to deal with Thanos for Avengers Endgame, and they thought once you bring that guy in,
yeah,
don't go back. I can't remember. I can't remember what the character's name is, but it's something so huge, Galactus like that. It's like you can't. It's like no, and they said we can't do this.
right. Well, because I mean, if they do, the next big bad is Galactus. Is the only person that I know of right off that's bigger than Galactus is the Beyonder, who of course is who brought all of the Marvel good guys and the Marvel bad guys into like the big space station battle arena, whatever, that started Secret Wars.
Yeah.
In the comics. And so, he's the Beyonder was powerful enough that he like poof and brought in Galactus as one of those. So,
Yeah, the name's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember.
Like where like What were they on?
Well, Marvel ran into the problem of, former CEO Bob Chapek wanting to prioritizing quantity over quality, and it's like they're racing to put the railroad tracks down as the train has come barreling down their way.
Yeah.
And they started requiring you to watch all the streaming shows to know what's going on in the movies. There's no clear chronology as to what's going on or continuity. And it seemed to be that they were setting up all these separate storylines so that way when the Kang dynasty happens, that forcibly unites all the storylines to deal with this problem. And it's weird because the ending of Loki season 2 sort of closes off the Kang storyline if they want to, even though they still need to do right by that character because that's a great character and they could easily bring that character back anytime they want to. But once you dive into multiverse stuff, you lose your stakes. The continuity and the chronology is all over the place. And it's like they just kind of making a mess of it. Whereas with The Mandalorian, we've had like 40 chapters of Mandalorian-related storytelling between that show and Ahsoka and Book of Boba Fett, and it all seems to be hinting at explaining away that line, somehow Palpatine returned. And like we've had 40 chapters of new Star Wars storytelling, which is essentially just building to explain that one line.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of time and money to invest in trying to explain that, even though they do need to explain that. But even this isn't really clear as to where this is ultimately going to go. I mean, they might have a plan because they've announced the crossover movie quite a while ago. Mm-hmm. And that's something that Filoni and Favreau have been kind of working towards. So maybe they have a solid plan for that. But I'm wondering more so once they're done with the whole Mandoverse crossover movie, what's the next big thing they're going to do? Like we have Skeleton Crew coming up, but that sounds like at least a breath of fresh air in that it's its own thing.
It does. And the Acolyte we have, which also is going to be, for now, its own thing. I think the Acolyte is a perfect place that we could build other worlds and other stories and things from. But, yeah, I don't know.
And then there's the rumor that they're going to do Tales of the Sith potentially for Tales of the Jedi, which works because they already did Count Dooku's journey into Darth Tyrannus in the first season, so that'd be cool to see.
I mean, it's speculated, and there's nothing more than speculation that a place to do if you're going through and you're going to have a Mando and Grogu movie, and you're going to potentially have the Heir to the Empire movie before the Rey movie happens. Is you build that in, you could cross the universes. Once you cross the streams in the Filoni movie then, hey, let's put Grogu with Rey and go.
Yeah, and it seems kind of wise to finish the Mandoverse portion of the storytelling before you do the Rey movie, because they were like when they did the sequel trilogy, like they focused on like that's what we're doing right now, and then they went off to do Mandoverse. It's like, well, why don't we finish the Mandoverse stuff? And yeah, Andor was happening adjacently because it was produced in the UK.
Yeah. When are we getting that? I haven't heard of in a while, like when that's gonna.
That got delayed to 2025 because the strikes interfered with the production schedule. And the post-production schedule is quite long on that show. So they want to make sure they don't screw it up, which is good because they're going to do right by it. And then Skeleton Crew, I guess, is due to come out sometime this year.
I have gotten mixed messages from sources that I hear whether Skeleton Crew I thought was done, it was ready, it was going. They were just kind of
because they had a panel at Celebration last year, right?
Yeah, yeah. And but it hadn't come out, and then I'm hearing now maybe the Acolyte will get pushed forward and it will come out before Skeleton Crew. But then I hear the reverse too. So
that was something that they supposedly showed like a sizzle reel for Acolyte that was exclusive only to the panel attendees that never made its way online for the Acolyte. Well, the fact that they haven't dropped trailers for either Skeleton Crew or Acolyte tells me that they're probably further off.
Well, there was an awful lot of stuff. The live stage had tons and tons of Acolyte content. Those actors were coming out of panels and they were coming to the live stage and they were super excited about it. And it got me super excited because, I was, if you want to check out some of that, people that are watching this it is on our news desk coverage that we were doing the daily wrap-ups during Celebration London, for those of us who didn't attend, who were just here and filtering the information and putting it back out there. So there's a lot of that, and you can watch the live stage. All that stuff is online, and you can hear Carrie-Ann Moss and Eunice Yamamoto and a lot of the other actors that are there talking about the Acolyte and the excitement. Now, I don't remember there being as much live stage coverage of Skeleton Crew, but it has been a while. So I may just not be remembering that. Or I may not have, watched all the hours upon hours upon hours of live stage coverage that could be there. So go look, dive on your internet and check it out. You know, I think the concepts that I've heard for Skeleton Crew sound really cool. The actors in Acolyte are great actors, and it is giving us the potential to hear about the universe from a Sith centric point of view. So,
yeah, it'd be fun if they get around to it, or whenever they get around to it. And then I'm still wondering if there might be a third season of Visions. That would be a cool thing to either drop or announce for Celebration Japan next year.
Yes. Now that would be extra special is if you go ahead and get a lot of Japanese actors who are participating in Star Wars, and that's fresh in their mind because Visions 2 has been a little while now, and between now and Celebration Japan, it's going to be a long while. But kind of get some of those actors fresh in your mind to participate in Celebration Japan. That would be cool. And everybody's starting to speculate now as if, we got Mando and Grogu coming. The production is going to have started and going on. Like this year is Mando Grogu movie trailer in Japan.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's the case when they would release it, because I don't think they're going to put it out in December 2025 against Avatar 3. Maybe unless they can get it done in time for a summer release. Not sure. That'll be kind of interesting to see where it goes. And speaking of the anime side of things and Visions, it'd be great if they did, kind of like what Warner Brothers is doing right now, where they let an anime company and anime director do an animated Middle Earth centric film, The War of the Rohirrim, coming out 11 months from today. That dives into the appendices and tells the story of the War of the Rohirrim, and it's like, okay, that's cool. That'd be neat if you let anime do a Star Wars movie, because there's so many appendices, if you will, to the back doors of Star Wars. Like, they should just do the Darth Bane trilogy. Everybody would show up for that. It would be like, how many people really know that story outside of the diehard fan? Not many. So that would be like a whole brand new thing people would love.
Well, and if you did some more of that world building in that would be a way to and just tell parts of it or a backstory of that. That would be a way to get you to the live action movie that everybody wants. Everybody wants Keanu Reeves as Darth Bane. Everybody. Who doesn't want Keanu Reeves as Darth Bane? I don't know. But
that's the thing. They don't know what they're doing over at Lucasfilm. They don't know what they have. They don't trust the people that they hire to do these projects. And it's like they're kind of all over the place right now. Like, I would not be surprised if the only reason the Rey movie is happening is because Daisy Ridley probably called them, because there are other films that she's done since Star Wars have been critical and box office flops. And it's like, okay, go back to something that made money, that was even if it wasn't critically well received, something that you can do that people will show up for. And it's like, okay, we'll do a Rey movie. But were they planning on doing that to begin with? Who knows?
I don't know.
I remember once upon a time they announced that they were going to bring back Poe and Finn in a thing, and then those two actors said no, they didn't want to come back, and so that was the end of that.
I would hope that, especially since how critically kind of Daisy's other movies have been, is I would hope, and rebellions are built on hope, is that they've pitched her something good, not that she's going to come back and do further damage to Rey. That she's going to come back for something good. So it does help Star Wars. It helps her career. That's what I'd hope. But so yeah, that's kind of what's going on, and there'll be more stuff going on in Star Wars and more to talk about as these things kind of happen. But I want to start like a new kind of segment here on the Unifying Force that when we, we've got stuff to talk about, and we've talked about the news of the time. But we have minutes remaining. I want to start like viewer mail. Okay, this is an old concept. Some of you may not even remember like viewer mail and where this comes from. But what talk show was it on? Is who did, was this?
A lot of people do it. A lot of YouTube shows still do it, taking questions and stuff from their audience. And
Well, I'm talking about like the old days when, like, I think it was
right, you
Letterman,
used to send
like
in
had
letters. Yeah.
physical mail on the desk.
Well, we don't have physical mail on the
I
desk.
know we don't have physical mail on the desk, but we do, or we are creating a way for you guys to get in touch with us. All right. So if you want to send us questions, and try and keep them like Unifying Force questions, don't ask us when do tickets go on sale for Japan, because we don't know. And that's why you should be watching the group. Okay. Because that as soon as that is known, that will go in the main Facebook group. But if you've kind of got like some what ifs or what happens or something that takes thinking about a little bit of this and thinking about a little bit of that and then putting it together, unifying, is let us know. If you've got questions, go ahead and send us those questions right here at vcunifyingforce@gmail.com. All right. Send us any of your questions. If you have ideas for like a show topic that's question centric, or just an idea of something that we should explore, right there. Reach out to us on the interwebs and let us know. So that's going to be a new thing that we're going to do, and we're going to kind of kick it off today. Is I told Kat just the smallest bit of this before we started recording, but I haven't given her the questions. So to start our questions, since we didn't have an email before this and nobody's actually, I went to the Facebook group. I've gone to the Celebration Japan 2025 Facebook group, and I found some questions that were asked in there that we're going to answer. Okay. So it's one member I found that asked two questions this week that I thought were very Unifying Force appropriate. And I wish I knew his name. This was an anonymous member submitted these questions. Okay. So here is the first one, and we'll read it because this is the first time Kat's seeing this. Could Obi-Wan be seen as a villain in Star Wars? Okay, could Obi-Wan be seen as a villain because he did not help Anakin from burning? He's like, Anakin, you were my brother, and then he's just like lets him fry. Especially, see, and here's the kicker part of that, because that first was yes, no. Since he already knew of the relationship that Anakin had with Padme, he already knew this was going on, and that was in his mind when he chose to just leave him there and walk away.
No, he's not a villain because he's not Anakin. He's Darth Vader. People keep calling that the Obi-Wan Anakin duel. It's like it's not. It's Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader. This guy's already slaughtered children. He's led an onslaught in the Jedi Temple. He's pledged himself to the dark side. He was choking out his very pregnant wife to death, practically. Obi-Wan's like, no, this is a severely toxic thing for you to. You shouldn't even be together. Like, this is over. Even Padme said, I don't know you anymore, and she basically, in a way, disowned him practically, or disavowed herself from him. When she's like, no, I'm not going to follow you down this path. I'm not going to do this. And then he just angrily, rather than trying to ask why does she not want to follow, he just says, oh, Obi-Wan, he's the one who did this, didn't he? And just accuses her of trying to kill him, and that kind of. It's like, no, yeah, he knew of the relationship, but that's not a healthy relationship. Clearly, it's not like, and even if he saved him, is he really going to go back and be a nice guy? No. Like, even though right before the Mustafar duel begins, he's looking out over the lava fields, and he's like got a tear streaming down his face because he knows he's done terrible things that he can't come back from. But it's like, this is something that's been in him for a while. Like when he told Padme how he slaughtered the Tusken women and children, and it's like No, like Obi-Wan. Yes, it's a good thing ultimately in the grand scheme of things that he let him burn there, because he ends up being instrumental in defeating, the Dark Lord of the Sith and Return of the Jedi, and effectively is the Jedi of the title Return of the Jedi. But I don't think you could see him as a villain, because there was no coming back at that point. Particularly because he's already upset. Like, Luke could reach Vader and get him to come back, because there's no animosity between Luke and Vader, like no personal baggage there. Whereas he has nothing but animosity towards Obi-Wan, because we saw even in Attack of the Clones, he was already blaming Obi-Wan for not letting him go back and save his mother like he wanted to. That was his pledge. That's why he joined the Jedi. He wanted to be a hero. So Obi-Wan's not going to be able to reach him. Padme is just sworn off everything that he's doing. And so he's just going to be this, vicious, evil guy at this point. And I don't see him. I don't see a scenario where, even if Obi-Wan had the power of the Force to magically heal all of Anakin's or Vader's wounds at that point, that he would renounce the Sith and come and join them. Like, I don't see that happening. So
you don't.
if you want to say he's a villain because he didn't do, like, he's just letting him burn instead of helping, it's like, yeah, but you help and save the guy, and then what?
But you're helping to save the guy because, like, look, he's got this relationship with Padme, and we see that Padme is still asking for Anakin. In the scenes before, when he's force choked her and she's like, yeah, she's done. I don't even know you. But when we see after Anakin's demise and Obi-Wan's return, when she's giving birth, she's asking for Anakin. She's not done with Anakin. And is I kind of like, this is one of those what if questions, and that's why I thought it was a Force thing, because what if Obi-Wan had helped Anakin in his parental responsibilities? What if Anakin had helped raise Luke and Leia? Is because it's like he didn't just leave his brother there who had turned to evil. He left the husband and very soon future father of twins. I don't know that they knew it was twins at that point. Maybe they did. I'm not sure. But he left him there to die.
Yeah. Well, he left him there to die because
that make him a bad guy.
He's evil. Like, what's he going to do with those kids? Like, he's not going to renounce Palpatine and go live off peacefully on Naboo with Padme. Like, that's not going to happen. And she, in her delirium, she's like, "Where's Anakin?" Almost like she's kind of forgotten. Like, did you not remember what just happened on Mustafar when he was right there? And she says, she knows there's good in him still, as a foreshadowing of, the future events. But realistically, when you think about it, how would that relationship have worked after that? Because we totally get why Anakin doesn't like, or why Vader doesn't like the Jedi. We get why he doesn't like Obi-Wan, and even if he did forgive Padme, he's still, like, he kind of knows what Palpatine did, but he still respects him more. So it's like, how does that relationship? How would that realistically work? It's like, in terms of a what if scenario, if he had never fallen to the dark side and just left the Jedi Order or been expelled for them finding out he was, fathering kids and all that, then great, he would have been a great father and all that kind of stuff. But in that scenario, is Darth Vader coming back to be a father? It's like, I don't see it, because even in Empire Strikes Back, we find out that his motives for wanting to bring Luke into the fold is not purely altruistic. It's because the Emperor has foreseen that you were going to be the one who does him in, and you can help me do that. We can accomplish this together and rule the galaxy together. And it's like, so he's still got that type of train of thought. It takes, extremes to finally bring him back from it. But in that scenario, in the episode 3 timeline, I don't see him just being like, okay, and then being all kind of happy family at that point. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are many potential rabbit holes that one can go down at that point. Is had he brought Anakin back, could Anakin's redemption have happened sooner? Would he have lost not as much of the hate? Would he have seen the evil of Palpatine quicker, because it was Obi-Wan who put him there? So we're still mad. We still become Vader, but would he have come back sooner? Because again, remember the suit. Okay, Palpatine is the one who put him in this suit and who created the suit with old, outdated technology and never updates it. He's keeping Anakin in massive amounts of pain because that makes him stronger in the Force.
Yeah.
Because, so could this whole redemption thing, the end of Palpatine, all of that, Padme, had she lived, who knows? Still, that's another if. Could Padme have brought Anakin back around faster? Because again, the first thing he asked for in the suit is, "Where's Padme? You killed her." No, But does that make Obi-Wan the villain? No.
No, he's not the villain. It's like you think he probably felt that he's done. He didn't think he was going to survive that. So it's not so
Well,
much that he left him to burn. It's like they just ended the fight. Vader catches fire almost immediately, and that's the end of it. It's like he's not going to be able to save him. And it's like, what are you saving at this point? Because it's gone. It's Padme's the one who tells Obi-Wan that there's good left in him. Obi-Wan clearly didn't believe that anymore. And you can't retroactively say, "Oh, you're evil," because he was still good. It's like, no, he's figured he's done. There's nothing healthy is going to come of that because Padme is not going to go down that road with him. And Palpatine certainly isn't going to let him just leave.
right. I mean, it's a lot of what ifs, and it's more what ifs that we could examine and delve deeper into when we have Geo for a third opinion and go down there. But I think the initial answer is no. My level of is it evil or villainous is Obi-Wan should have put him out of his misery right there. The leaving him to burn. I know it was difficult for you, and it would be, but did he not learn from the events of he's got this and then doesn't learn from it because that happens again in Kenobi?
Yeah, well, Kenobi was not well written. Like that whole confrontation where he just leaves him again. It's like, no, if you saw him survive being burned alive on the shores of Mustafar, then there's no reason for you to leave him in a little sand trap. It's like, no.
Yeah.
But they didn't put much thought into writing that series, clearly. Yeah.
Obi-Wan, I enjoyed, and I know that you have another opinion of that, but I think some of the reasons I enjoyed Obi-Wan are colored by other things. Is the presentation of that at Celebration Anaheim was amazing, and meeting you, and again colors it in a different way. And Lucasfilm probably, they did that to me on purpose. It's like, yes, we're going to show here's a couple of episodes, here you go. Oh, watch them with the cast. So yes, now we have goodwill towards this series, though I still think, spend a couple more bucks and not have him at a table under a standard fluorescent light, people. But so anyway, so the answer to this anonymous is no. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down, but no, Obi-Wan not the villain. So the same anonymous person asked two questions in this post, and we're going to go ahead and we'll answer the other one as well. Let's go to this. It is, if one of the rules or one of the cardinal rules of the Jedi Order or the classic Jedi Order is no attachments, having no attachments, then why on earth do you immediately, once they've reached a certain point, pair a master to an apprentice? Give the masters a Padawan when they are at this young formative age, and to this person, this group member. To me, masters and apprentices, like the old apprentice system, are starting with that form of relationship. You're setting them up to fail. Why would you do that? As opposed to, I guess, having some other less personal form of Jedi teachings, like put them in like a lecture hall with like one guy or a droid or something.
Well, it's because one is hypocrisy. because we can't let you have attachments outside of the order, but as long as you're committed to us, that's good. The second reason is we've seen that some of the Jedi Masters are not as loving of their apprentices. Like we saw Luminara and Dooley was willing to drop her apprentice like a rock. Oh, okay, she's dead, whatever. We saw that Qui-Gon was willing to drop Obi-Wan like a rock when he had the opportunity to, like when the council told him he can't have two apprentices. Oh, well, I'll just drop Obi-Wan and forget him, and I'm going to have Anakin. So there's that type of thing going on, even though the apprentice probably looks up to them and they just kind of accept it. So that's a different type of attachment. And it's like within the order, because your attachment to your master and apprentice vice versa is still committed with all of the things they're expected to do, all the things they're expected to uphold. They're not going to be selfish about it, because the idea is if both of them are equally selfless and committed to the cause, then neither of them would sacrifice one for the other if it came at the expense of losing whatever the mission or whatever the most important thing was.
So why aren't Jedi overly connected Jedi Masters allowed to marry other Jedi Masters? That's the same thing. That's within the order.
Well, because that would sort of elevate the relationship and potentially jeopardize it. Like, oh, you're committed more to your spouse than you are to the cause. Because that's a form. Because the thing is that marriage and that is something that is for yourself. It's not necessary for the whole structure of the order. And it's not like, and because they had a habit of, just adopt, or not a habit, but they adopt children basically from other people. They don't need to reproduce themselves. So because they're committed to the cause, it's like, another form of celibacy, if you will. Like, you're committed to this and you're not going to deviate from it. Because there's obviously religious overtones with the way George designed the Jedi Order of the prequel trilogy. Like I've often said, the Jedi Temple is like Vatican City, and the Galactic Senate down the street is like, the Roman Senate. It's and the Roman Empire is effectively what is rising out of that, and Palpatine being like Julius Caesar. And it's that same type of dichotomy going on there, because in real history, it's like, yeah, the Vatican had power, but even the Vatican army wouldn't have been able to stop the Roman Empire if they decided they wanted to steamroll them overnight and make up any story they wanted to about why they did it. They used them because it's good to use that as an religion used as a drug or a weapon or whatever. Like the Inquisitions and such weren't really about religion. It was really about getting rid of political opponents and dissidents and things like that. Same thing with the Crusades. It was about really seizing extra land and expanding territory, not about punishing people because they didn't believe in your religion, and so because he's getting back to the roots of what the show is, finding real world connections, it's like, yeah, he clearly based the structure of the Jedi more or less kind of like on the Catholic Church. The priests are supposed to be celibate. You're not allowed to have relationships, that kind of thing, because you're supposed to be fully committed to God and the cause. And the Jedi are kind of the same way. We're supposed to be fully committed to the Force. And yeah, we could take apprentices or proteges or train, or like in the church, you train new priests or whatever, but you're not as connected to them. So yeah, we see certain apprentices get connections. Like Obi-Wan obviously had deep care for Qui-Gon, and Anakin and Obi-Wan had more of a brotherly friendship. Like that does happen, but because they've been effectively brainwashed since children, that comes secondary to, like, they will never sacrifice the cause, if you will, if they had to choose between, saving their master or saving their apprentice or preserving the cause. They'll always pick the cause. And we saw that repeatedly with the other Jedi Masters that I mentioned in Clone Wars, Luminara and Dooley, Kit Fisto. We saw that Mace Windu is even a bit harsh on certain Padawan stuff. It's like, it's kind of like that. It's a real world parallel, as well as, if you're in this sector, if you're in the tribe, so to speak, then it's okay for us to have these set up. But outside, no, I can't do that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's not, other levels of what's going on. We could see in the Dawn of the Jedi that there are reasons behind, Jedi not allowed to marry or whatnot, because Jedi breeding potentially, if the Force becomes cumulative over time, might have happened in the Dawn of the Jedi, and that'd been a bad thing. This is where we create the Sith or whatnot. Is to ultimate power is ultimately corrupting. Is once you start that lineage of a purebred Jedi or whatnot, bad stuff occurs. I don't know. Is there's a lot of things to that, but I think the easy answer is to George was setting this up and using real world events, things that have happened. How do you train to become a master at anything? How do you become a master blacksmith? Oh, you become an apprentice. How do you become a master swordsman? Oh, you apprentice under a swordsman. Or how do you become a master swordsmith? So George is looking at history of the real world, and he's creating it in there. You were talking about the Roman Empire and the Senate and the Forum. Is, there's no accident that the clone troopers are, armor pieces reminiscent. They've got the crest down the middle of the helmet reminiscent of Roman armor. Is all of those real world things that go into it. That's why. And is it a good thing? Yeah. Is it makes it more relatable? And is it even a good thing that's a problem? Yes. This is a story. George has put that, maybe not even purposely, but put that level of conflict in there already. It's like, oh, we can't have attachments. Oh, but we go ahead and we have these people that do have attachments. So all of those things. So, I mean, yeah, it's not a bad thing that problems are built in. Is you give your story places to go by all of these little what ifs, and this what if and that what if. Is it gives, in my opinion, people the opportunity to have their own head canon, and why did this happen, and why is this going to happen, and what would happen if. That's one of the reasons why we are still talking about this little lower budget movie made for children from 1977.
Speaking of which, another piece of Star Wars news just dropped, which is directly related to what you just said. So let me look up the guy's name real quick. But this is actually very telling and will sum up properly everything actually we've been talking about today. So this is actually quite fortuitous for this.
We're going to unify the Unifying Force, like live during the recording.
All right. So let's see. So Takashi Yamazaki, writer-director of Godzilla -1, just screened the movie for Lucasfilm, at Lucasfilm. And those who have seen that movie know that it does heavily lean into parts of like original Star Wars in the third act, especially. And that is getting back to the simplicity of great storytelling. And it's not connected to anything else. You don't have to know who Godzilla is or anything. It's its own thing. Good character arcs, great story. And it's following the KISS rule of screenwriting. Keep it simple, stupid. It is a very simple, very classic hero's journey type story of redemption. And he screened it for Lucasfilm. And I think that's significant because this is what you need to be doing, Lucasfilm. Get back to telling simple, classic stories. And that's one of them.
Give that man a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
Right there. That's the way you do. Go out there, look for people who have written good original content, or content that has, that's built on something else. Because, I mean, George didn't make these stories up off the top of his head. He took legends and stuff of the real world, and he threw it out there and find someone who can do it well, not somebody who just takes every trope that they ever saw in any science fiction movie anywhere. I'm not naming names, but you know who I'm talking about, who just takes every trope ever and loosely strings them together and says, oh, look, I made the sci-fi.
Yes. So yes, give that man a Star Wars movie, and how fortuitous that he shows it to him happened to be right now when they really need to hear that message more than anything. It's like, come on, classic Star. Like even George, he didn't have a solid plan for what the actual specific plots of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi were going to be, but he had the template of Joseph Campbell's 3-act structure of a hero's journey to follow, and that's how that played out the way it does. And that's kind of what we see in Godzilla -1, and that would be great when that eventually comes to home media to perhaps be a film on a watch along. Because now that it has been screened for Lucasfilm and has those ties to Star Wars, I think it's very Star Wars adjacent, and Guinness World Record just awarded Godzilla longest running film franchise in history. Began in 1954 and has been ongoing through different studios the whole time, or mostly the same studio, Toho, and then the United States and others the entire time.
Well, and of course, we are getting ready to many of Star Wars people journey to the home of Godzilla for a Star Wars weekend. So that's I know a few people that are already related, making Godzilla / Star Wars related swag. So gonna be an appropriate thing. I think so. I think we should do that when we get done with Ahsoka. I'm totally suggesting that, and I'm totally suggesting that you join us on that watch along. That would be an amazing thing. But anyway, we are past our time here. I'm excited. I like the new kind of questioning thing. So please, 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 if you have any questions for us, right there, vcunifyingforce@gmail.com. Send us those questions. Send us some show ideas. And send us your name. I didn't choose on purpose. Those questions were great. I wish I knew, and it wasn't an anonymous member or whatever. But you can tell us in the chat if or tell us in your email if you don't want to be known as the person who asked that question. Tell us you want to be anonymous, and we can make that happen too. So I think that's it.
Yes, that was a fun episode today.
Absolutely. So until the next 2 weeks there, hopefully Gio will be back with us, and we will tackle yet another topic, maybe one of your topics. But until then, may the Force be with you.
Oh, no, say they told.